At 0547, a Mavic 3T recon drone was aloft at 280 meters over the Bakhmut. Chasiv Yar rode its thermal optics, painting the terrain below in high-contrast black and white. 3 kilometers west, the Ukrainian drone crew from the 427th Separate Unmanned Systems Brigade held position. Call sign Ryrog sat in a ruined basement. 4 Ryrog-10 strike FPVs prepped on a plastic tarp, each armed with a 2.8-kilogram charge. In the next 10 minutes, their reality would shift. They would dismantle an enemy infantry column of more than 20 men before they could even contest our line. The enemy moved in the open, falsely trusting the cover of darkness. The Mavic operator acquired them immediately. At 0548, the thermal feed displayed a ragged line of heat signatures moving at walking pace. Moving around 4 kilometers per hour, they had 0 vehicle escort, no tactical dispersion, and no flank security. No overwatch. They had departed a staging area east of the Bakhmut ruins prior to 0530. At 0530, they pushed west down a dirt road toward Chasiv Yar, over 20 infantrymen on foot. They were strung across 200 meters, towing a quad bike on a trailer near the center of the column. This was their mobility reserve for the final assault. Right at the center of that formation, the trailer stood out. A bright rectangular heat signature dragged by 2 soldiers, its engine still warm from recent use. Our operator marked the lead element and immediately transferred the target coordinates to our strike cell. The distance from our launch site to the target was 8 kilometers. At 90 kilometers per hour, a Ryrog-10 covers the distance in 5 minutes 20 seconds. At its maximum speed of 115, that transit drops to 4 minutes 10 seconds. Factor in 2 minutes to deploy. Pull the drone hook up the battery, establish link, and arm the warhead. Total time from command to first kinetic impact runs between 6 minutes 10 and 7 minutes 20 seconds. The target was moving at 4 kilometers per hour. In 7 minutes, they'd cover barely 500 meters. They were trapped. It is simple tactical math, and on this battlefield, that is a death sentence. The coordinator contacted the 24th Brigade's Fire Direction Center at 0549, confirmed over 20 enemy moving west, requesting fire support, suppressive missions along their vector. The fire control element responded immediately, suppressive fires approved, engaging. The primary objective was not artillery kills but containment, keeping the enemy pinned to the exposed road. We blocked their escape into the tree line 150 meters south. Artillery shapes the corridor, FPV sweep it clean. 8 kilometers southeast, a must-be howitzer crew received the fire mission. At a sustained fire rate of 5 rounds per minute, their first high-explosive shells would impact within 3 minutes, but modern tactics dictate simultaneous coordination. The drone operators did not wait for the artillery to make impact. Launched at 0550. The first Ryrog-10 cleared the operator's hand immediately, its high-performance electric motors climbing with a thin, rising whine. A reinforced carbon frame carrying dual day and night, optics carrying a 2.8-kilogram warhead. Cruising at 90 kilometers per hour, the command console showed Mavic's thermal feed on the left and the strike drone's camera on the right. Grainy, compressed, yet functional. It could track moving assets, but not resolve individual faces. The platform climbed to 60 meters and leveled off head northwest along a flight path masked by the ridgeline for the first 3 kilometers. Cruising at 90, it would enter corridor around 0555. 5 minutes and 20 seconds. That was our window. The enemy kept marching. At 0552, the first shell hit 80 meters south of the road, throwing a column of dirt and smoke. The tactical effect was immediate. The enemy formation compressed. Soldiers who were at 10-meter intervals closed to 5. Their trailer slowed. Two rear soldiers dropped flat, then panicked and ran forward to rejoin the group. The second impact occurred 40 seconds later, 60 meters to the north. The column was now effectively bracketed. Threat to the south, threat to the north, trapped on the road. All dispersion options were gone. Their only movement was forward or backward along that exposed dirt strip, and our Ryrog-10 was already 5 kilometers downrange. This is where tactical inevitability took over. An infantry column moving at 4 kilometers per hour on an open road requires at least 2 minutes to reach cover, whether a tree-lined ditch or ruined structure. But our artillery had already sealed those exits. The shells were not targeting the men, they targeted the exits. Every impact landing 60 to 80 meters off-road was not a miss. It was a tactical wall. In my experience, scattering that column was suicide. Shrapnel would shred them in the open. But they couldn't freeze. At 280 meters up, they were fully exposed. And you cannot outrun a 90 km/h drone. At 0554, the Ryrog-10 cleared 3 kilometers from the target. The operator initiated terminal adjustments. Nose pitched down trading altitude for velocity. On the screen, the FPV feed sharpened with lethal clarity. As range closed, the Mavic thermal feed confirmed my tactical assessment. The enemy remained bunched up on the road, shuffling west at a crawl. Then, at 0555, the Ryrog-10 commenced its dive. The angle was steep. At nearly 50 degrees, this vertical plunge minimized the target footprint while maximizing the downward blast cone. The target trailer filled the feed for under 2 seconds. On its bed, the quad bike stood out. Its handlebars cast a sharp thermal shadow on the bed. Impact. A 2.8 kilogram warhead detonated. The quad bike disintegrated, and the trailer frame buckled instantly. It flipped, creating an instant roadblock. Debris erupted. The 2 lead soldiers pulling it were thrown clear. Their primary mobility asset was destroyed. To make matters worse, the second Ryrog-10 was already airborne. This initial kill completely altered the battlefield geometry. Originally, they were a dispersed line moving forward. They had maintained proper tactical spacing. But once the blast hit, their cohesion shattered completely. The vanguard fled west toward cover 600 meters away, while the rear element panicked and bunched up. They clustered around the wreckage, paralyzed by indecision. In warfare, that kind of compression is fatal. It created the perfect target for follow-on assets. The second Ryrog-10, launched at 0552, arrived. It reached the kill zone at 0557. The rear group had packed 8 to 10 men within 30 meters. They were static, tending to casualties near the burning wreckage. At this point, the pilot needed no precision. Proximity alone would do the job. The drone plunged, detonating at ground level with devastating effect. Back in the command basement, the third pilot prepped our final Ryrog-10. Only 1 battery remained. Aerial surveillance showed the survivors sprinting west, thermal signatures stretching toward the edge of the town. The third Ryrog-10 launched 90 seconds later, hunting down that lead group. They had covered 200 meters from the blast site, desperately pushing for the safety of the urban outskirts. But running 200 meters on foot takes a full minute. A drone closes that gap instantly. It took 8 seconds. Impact. 3 casualties. The survivors scrambled into a drainage ditch north of the road. Our artillery immediately shifted fire, dropping 2 high-explosive rounds into the ditch to bracket their position. The tactical message was clear that ditch was no cover, but a walled kill zone. The fourth Ryrog-10 launched. Arriving at 0601, it found the enemy column completely destroyed as a cohesive tactical unit. Scattered survivors crawled in panic, while our overhead drone tracked every heat signature with cold mechanical patience. The pilot targeted 2 men who had reached a tree line 50 meters south, the very area our artillery. We held this final drone back, biding our time and assessing the terrain before committing. The pilot circled 80 meters up, executing a wide spiral and a deliberate lock-on as the video feed stabilized. The camera locked onto 2 targets crawling through the brush. At 0601, the drone dove. In its final dive, the thermal feed sharpened on 2 prone targets. The warhead detonated directly between them. The spotter keyed his radio mission accomplished, column neutralized. By 06:05, the action ended. 18 minutes from initial visual contact to the final kill. 4 Ryrog-10s deployed minimal artillery fire and 1 scout drone, still holding station at 280 meters with 40% battery. Below, across a 400-meter kill zone, lay a burning trailer, a shattered quad, and the wreckage of an assault element that was 20 strong just 10 minutes ago. This operation did not fail due to They utilized a standard approach, maintained correct spacing, and used darkness to minimize visual detection. But they failed because we held the high ground of constant observation. Our thermal feed at 280 meters negates the night. Our rapid FPV deployment outpaces any infantry reaction. Finally, artillery does not need direct hits. It simply funnels the enemy directly into the waiting drones. This entire engagement required only 4 Ryrog-10s, 1 Mavic 3T, and a few 152mm shells. Those artillery rounds cost next to nothing compared to their targets. Now, somewhere along the Bakhmut Chasiv Yar corridor, another hostile force is assembling in their staging area. They check their gear, preparing to advance west, cover of night. They target the same route. Our Mavic is already airborne.